Alright, good evening folks, and welcome back to another war update video. We're diving into some truly groundbreaking news. In a historic move, President Joe Biden has reversed a key U.S. policy, officially granting Ukraine permission to use U.S.-made weapons to strike deep into Russian territory. This marks a major turning point in the Ukraine-Russia conflict and has already sent shockwaves through the international community. This decision comes at a critical moment, as Ukraine prepares to carry out its first long-range strikes using advanced U.S. weaponry in the coming days. The stakes have never been higher, and the implications of this shift are immense, both on the battlefield and in global diplomacy. Let's break down what this means for Ukraine, Russia, and the rest of the world. To understand why this decision is so significant, let's take a step back and look at the events leading up to it. For months, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been urging the U.S. to loosen restrictions on their weapons use. His goal has been clear: to hit critical Russian military targets far beyond Ukraine's borders, targets that have played a key role in Moscow's ongoing aggression. This shift in policy from the Biden administration didn't come out of nowhere. It was largely triggered by a new development: Russia's deployment of more than 10,000 North Korean soldiers to bolster its forces. These troops, stationed primarily in the Kursk region, have already begun combat operations, creating fresh challenges for Ukraine's defense and sparking alarm in Washington. It's also worth noting that the Biden administration is making this move just 2 months before President-elect Donald Trump takes office. With time running out, Biden is aiming to ensure Ukraine has every possible advantage to strengthen its position on the battlefield and at the negotiating table before the next administration begins. This leads us to the weapons Ukraine now has at its disposal. We're talking about Army Tactical Missile Systems, or ATACMS, which have a range of up to 190 miles. This expanded capability could be a game-changer for Ukraine as it faces an increasingly aggressive Russian offensive. Let's dig into how these weapons will be used and what this means for the conflict moving forward. Now let's break down the specifics of this monumental decision. President Biden's authorization allows Ukraine to use U.S.-supplied weapons to strike deep into Russian territory for the first time in this conflict. These strikes will likely target key military infrastructure, including airfields and troop concentrations in regions like Kursk, where North Korean forces are reportedly deployed alongside Russian troops. The primary tool in Ukraine's arsenal for these operations is the Army Tactical Missile System, or ATCMS. These long-range missiles, capable of striking targets up to 190 miles away, give Ukraine the ability to hit strategic sites that were previously untouchable under U.S. restrictions. This marks a significant shift from earlier U.S. policies that sought to limit Ukraine's operational reach, fearing escalation with Moscow. In response to the decision, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed his nation, hinting at imminent action. "The missiles will speak for themselves," he said, emphasizing the urgency of the moment. While Kyiv has been tight-lipped about the exact timing and targets for these strikes, sources indicate that Ukraine is moving quickly to execute its first long-range operations. As expected, there has been no immediate response from the Kremlin, but Russian officials have already warned of severe retaliation, with some even threatening escalation to global conflict levels. This has raised questions about the potential fallout from Biden's decision, but for now, Ukraine sees it as a critical opportunity to regain the upper hand in a war that has seen increasing Russian advances. This decision also comes as a direct response to North Korea's involvement in the war, with more than 10,000 troops supporting Russia. By removing restrictions on Ukraine's use of advanced weapons, the Biden administration is sending a clear message to both Moscow and Pyongyang: the West will not back down. Let's now explore how the world is reacting to this decision and what it could mean for the broader geopolitical landscape. The global response to Biden's decision has been swift and divided. Unsurprisingly, Russia's political leaders have issued dire warnings. Vladimir Jabarov, a senior member of Russia's parliament, called the move a potential trigger for World War III, while Andrei Klishas claimed the escalation could result in the complete destruction of Ukraine's statehood. These strong statements underscore the high stakes of this decision and the potential for further escalation in the conflict. Meanwhile, some in the U.S. political sphere have voiced concerns as well. Critics, particularly among Trump allies, have framed the move as reckless. Richard Grenell, a close advisor to President-elect Donald Trump, accused Biden of escalating the wars before he leaves office. On the other hand, several congressional Republicans have welcomed the policy change, stating it was long overdue. Representative Mike Turner, chair of the House Intelligence Committee, praised the decision but urged further steps to remove all restrictions on Ukraine's use of U.S. weaponry. Ukraine's European allies have shown cautious support. Poland's foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, lauded Biden's decision as a proportional response to North Korea's involvement in the conflict and Russia's massive missile strikes. However, NATO allies remain wary of actions that could provoke a direct confrontation with Moscow or escalate to nuclear conflict. From Kyiv, Zelensky has expressed gratitude, emphasizing the importance of this decision in defending Ukraine's sovereignty. However, he's also made it clear that these strikes won't be publicized in advance, adding an element of strategic surprise. His allies hope this will strengthen Ukraine's position not just on the battlefield, but also in any future peace negotiations. Let's now dive into the potential impacts this decision could have on the war itself and whether it might shift the tide in Ukraine's favor. The implications of Biden's decision to lift restrictions on Ukraine's use of U.S. weapons are monumental, with both immediate and long-term consequences for the conflict. In the short term, this move provides Ukraine with the ability to target key Russian military infrastructure far beyond the front lines. Strategic air bases, supply lines, and troop concentrations in areas like Kursk, where North Korean forces have joined the fight, are now within reach of Ukraine's strikes. Military analysts suggest that these strikes could disrupt Russia's operations significantly, particularly by neutralizing the airfields and missile launch sites used to attack Ukraine's civilian and military infrastructure. This could reduce the frequency and intensity of Russian assaults on Ukrainian cities, giving Kyiv much-needed breathing room to stabilize its defenses. Moreover, this newfound capability could shift the dynamics of the conflict. By taking the fight deeper into Russian territory, Ukraine may force Moscow to divert resources and attention away from the front lines, potentially slowing Russian advances. This could help Ukraine regain momentum in contested areas and reclaim lost ground, including territory in Kursk that was recently occupied by Russian and North Korean forces. On a broader scale, Biden's decision sends a clear message to Russia. The West remains committed to supporting Ukraine, even as political leadership in the U.S. prepares to change hands. This move also strengthens Ukraine's position in any potential peace negotiations, allowing Kyiv to bargain from a position of strength rather than desperation. However, the risks are equally significant. Russia has long considered strikes on its territory a red line, and this decision could provoke a fierce response, escalation. Whether through increased attacks on Ukraine or more aggressive rhetoric toward NATO is a real possibility. Additionally, some fear that this move could push the conflict closer to involving NATO countries directly, particularly if Russian retaliation impacts neighboring states like Poland. With Ukraine set to conduct its first long-range strikes in the coming days, the situation is poised to evolve rapidly. Let's now examine the concerns and risks tied to this decision and how they might shape the conflict moving forward. While Biden's decision represents a strategic boost for Ukraine, it also comes with a host of significant concerns. The most immediate risk is escalation. Russia has consistently warned that allowing Ukraine to strike its territory could provoke severe retaliation, including threats of using more destructive weaponry. The Kremlin has described such actions as a red line, and crossing it could lead to unpredictable consequences. There is also a growing fear among NATO allies that this decision might inadvertently draw them closer to direct involvement in the conflict. Russian missiles have previously strayed into NATO territory, and retaliatory strikes aimed at Ukraine's Western-supplied infrastructure could escalate tensions between Moscow and NATO member states like Poland. The possibility of an accidental or intentional escalation spilling over into NATO countries remains a major concern. Another key issue is the risk of civilian casualties. While Ukraine is targeting military sites, the use of long-range weapons in densely populated areas carries inherent dangers. Any collateral damage could fuel criticism of Kyiv and its allies, potentially weakening the global coalition supporting Ukraine. From a political perspective, the decision's timing is also raising eyebrows. With President-elect Donald Trump preparing to take office in just 2 months, some analysts fear this move could complicate the incoming administration's approach to the conflict. Trump has criticized the scale of U.S. support for Ukraine and promised to resolve the war quickly, though without detailing how. If Trump reverses Biden's decision, it could create uncertainty for Ukraine's military strategy and embolden Russia. Finally, there's skepticism about whether this policy change will significantly alter the trajectory of the war. Some military experts argue that while the ATACMS missiles expand Ukraine's capabilities, they alone may not be enough to decisively shift the balance of power. The conflict's outcome will likely depend on sustained support and a broader strategy beyond individual weapon systems. Despite these risks, the Biden administration's decision reflects a calculated move to address the growing challenges posed by Russia and its new ally, North Korea. Let's wrap up by summarizing this decision's broader implications and what lies ahead for the region. To sum it all up, President Biden's decision to allow Ukraine to use U.S.-made weapons for strikes deep into Russian territory marks a critical turning point in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. This policy shift provides Ukraine with an unprecedented opportunity to hit key military targets that were previously untouchable, potentially disrupting Russian operations and bolstering Ukraine's defense. While this decision reflects the Biden administration's commitment to supporting Ukraine against escalating aggression from Russia and now North Korea, it also carries significant risks. The threat of retaliation from Moscow, the potential for NATO entanglement, and uncertainties surrounding the incoming Trump administration's stance all highlight the delicate balance being struck with this move. The coming days will likely be pivotal as Ukraine prepares for its first long-range strikes using the newly authorized ATACMS missiles. How these strikes unfold and how Russia reacts will shape not only the next phase of this war but also the broader geopolitical landscape. Thank you for watching Conflict Chronicles. If you found this video informative, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more updates on the evolving situation. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.